Well, thanks for coming, everyone. Welcome to our April Lowdown. Please take a moment to rename yourself. I put instructions in the chat on the sidebar if you see those, but if not, you can move your cursor over your own image, and in the upper right corner, you'll see 3 dots. You can click on those, and this will give you the option to rename yourself. Like I said previously, if you're wanting to come on camera, we always love to see folks' faces. So thanks to those of you who have, but we also recognize that you're working and other things are happening. So we're just glad you're here with us. My name is Clay Scott. I'm the communications director here at the Good Meat Project. The Good Meat Project is a nonprofit with the mission to catalyze marketplace innovation, connection, and education across the meat supply chain in order to increase the economic viability and ecological impact of livestock farmers who invest in healthy land, animals, and people. As part of our Farmers and Ranchers Marketing Innovation Network program, we offer the Lowdown, which is where we're at today, to farmers and ranchers as a way to strengthen your marketing efforts and to explore logistical challenges you might be facing. Each month has a specific theme, this month's theme being about developing and including value-added products in your farm or business model. During our program today, if you have any technical issues, please feel free to private message Paige. You'll see if you go to the right side, the chat bar, you can click where it says to everyone, and you can go to Paige GMP Tech Support. Paige, do you want to hop on the screen real fast? Let us introduce you.
Hi.
All right. So Paige is our Farmers and Ranchers Marketing Innovation Network Program Manager, and she's here to support us today. Appreciate you being here, Paige.
Yep.
So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot her a message. I'm also going to put our community agreements in the chat real fast for everyone. All right. I also want to take a moment really quickly to thank our Lowdown sponsors, Farm Generations Cooperative, the creators of the Grown By app. Grown By is a farmer-owned cooperative app for direct-to-consumer sales. They like to offer any farmers associated with the Good Meat Project, so that's you, a 50% discount on their service fee in 2023. For a free one-on-one setup session and a 50% discount, email Mark at Farmer Generations Co-op and tell him you heard about the Grown By app from the Good Meat Project. We'd also like to thank our other Lowdown sponsor, who is Friesla, who provides farmers and ranchers an alternative, which is USDA compliant meat processing systems that enable you to have complete control over on-site meat processing. You can learn more about their work at friesla.com. So just to go over the run of the show for today, we'll have a 15 minutes at the end of the Lowdown for Q&A, but if you have a pressing question, please put it in the chat and we'll keep track of those. Paige and I will be grabbing those throughout the show. And we'll pass those over to Alex, and the last 15 minutes of the show, we'll bring up some of those questions. Or if you prefer to, you can wait until that Q&A time and come on screen and ask your question. If for any reason we don't have time to get to all of our questions, we do have our follow-up office hours on Tuesday next week, and there'll be more to come about that. So stay on at the end of the show today and we can kind of go over that. So now that I've handled all that stuff, I want to take a brief moment to introduce our guests. It is my pleasure to introduce Ruby Duke and Allison Hester of Raven and Boar Farms. Raven and Boar is a farmer-owned pig farm and charcuterie kitchen in the North Columbia County, New York. They're raising heritage breeds, silvo-pastured, whey-fed pork on about 100 acres. Ruby is the owner, farmer, meat processor, general manager of the operation, and Allison is the operations manager, so doing all the things that make all of that possible. And I won't steal too much of their thunder. I'll let them get into that as the show goes on. So I'd like to invite Alex on as well, our wonderful host from Lickskillet Farms, and let Alex take it away. I'm going to go ahead and unmute.
I already did it.
Nice. And then Alex, if you want to unmute, and we'll bring you on stage.
I am unmuted.
Perfect.
All right.
We'll go ahead.
Folks, I've got to say, I'm really excited about this particular program at Lickskillet. Those of you who've been on shows before, you know, we're direct to consumers with beef, pork, lamb, and poultry products on a 1,000-acre Century family farm. And we are constantly trying to push the envelope for us on value added. But as you'll see, where we are in our value added journey is very different from where these ladies are. And I'm really excited about what they're going to be able to teach us. So it's going to be another great session for me. I hope it is for everybody else. Let's jump right into the questions. I think we need to set the stage by clarifying one thing. And Ruby and Allison and I talked about this before the show started. In the state of Tennessee, there are government grants available for value-added products, but the definition of value-added products is any animal not sold on commodity markets. So if you've got a steer that you've raised on grass and you sell it as a farmer's market, that would count as a value-added product. That is not what we're talking about here today. These ladies will take that product and go much further with it than we would certainly do it at Lick Skillet, and they're doing value added at the very highest end, I think. So I want to make sure that if you're here thinking about how to move from commodity production to the first steps of value added, this is quite a bit beyond that, I think. All right, so having sort of put that out there, let's start. Give me some, I'll throw this open to either one of you. Give us the background on the two different businesses. I think it's important for everybody to understand. You operate the farm and then also the business, the charcuterie business. Can you tell us a little bit about both of those businesses?
Sure. I'll go for that.
Yes.
So Raven and Boar Farm, we raise heritage pastured pigs, way-fed, and on 100 acres here in upstate New York. And that is one business where it's managed and it's the running of the farm. All of those animals that we raise, some goes to wholesale, but primarily that's the only product 100% that we use is the animals we raise. That's our source material for all of our products. And then once, then a couple of years later, we started Hudson Valley Charcuterie, which is the processing the side of that business. So basically taking the pigs and then taking over what was previously outsourced USDA processing, taking that in-house and doing our own USDA and 20C, which is Ag and Markets processing. And so there's two reasons for that. Identifying how that animal, how we're processing, but also as a protection for ourselves in the food industry, having a business that I guess sort of protects the farm if someone were to say, oh, I ate this and I got sick, or there's a little bit of a balance there, but also how we manage it financially, they're so different. It was really important to separate them, to look at also what I think is really important, our expenses and our budgeting for the business completely separately.
That makes a lot of sense, Ruby. I can see where the business models be very different. Do you do any marketing for the Boar and Raven?
Well, Raven and Boar is the brand.
That's
still
the brand you go with. So the other one is behind the scenes. Okay.
Yeah, it's more behind the scenes. And we try to the goal is now to have them not compete. But for example, like on our label of our sausage, it says Raven and Boar. And then if you read the fine print, it says, processed by Hudson Valley Charcuterie.
Gotcha.
And that is how, and that's how we look, show them.
Right. Allison, were you starting to say something? I cut you off.
I was, but I'm sure I've lost it. But the vertical integration is basically the nuances of that was worth mentioning, how it's hard to see if you're making money.
Right.
When
If
you're
you
own
don't
source.
divide the two up. Right. It makes perfect sense. Now, when you set the transfer price from production to processing, are you using someone else's market price to establish your transfer price, or are you just negotiating that in-house?
No. So originally, when we started, it was based on market price, and it was a lot of guessing. And now what we've done after 14 years of farming is, and I think a little bit too late, and not too late in the business, but I wish we'd started this earlier, which was really understanding the financial and our costs to have it set that price. Because people do question that at the farm stand, at retail, at wholesale, why is this cost this much? And it's not just the story, oh, this is, oh, this is fancy pork. No, this is what we need to charge to pay our bills. We've worked really hard the last couple of years to strategize and define that, but with help. An amazing person, Julia Shanks, does business planning for farm value-added food and agriculture.
As kitchen table consultant.
Kitchen table consultants.
Highly recommend.
Could you get a link to that maybe and post it in chat? That'd be a useful one, I'm sure.
I'm on it.
I think there's definitely, I'd like to mention some other assets that have helped in the long run at the end, but I I think at this point, it's for every recipe, even for our sausage ingredients, we have a breakdown, a spreadsheet where we say, this is what I want to make. Oh, this is my dreamy idea of a caper and anchovy sausage. But then we put those costs into a spreadsheet, and we have to look at, are we getting our margin? Because otherwise it's just, we can't produce it any certain time. It's just charity. So it's the hard part, is finding that balance between the, farming, the physical part, the creative part, and the business side, and having them find a balance where they're really supporting each other.
You were able to describe to us the production side by saying it's 100 acres that we're raising hogs in a silvopasture. How can you describe the sort of size of the charcuterie part of the business? How many people work there? How big is your facility? Anything like that, just so we get a mental image of what's going on.
Okay, so we raise about 200 pigs a year, all year round. And that pasturing and, the managing of the herd changes seasonally. But they do have free choice outside, and that is generally, it was one person managing the farm and infrastructure originally. When I started this business with my original partner, he managed the farm infrastructure and the livestock, and then I managed the marketing, wholesale, and eventually the processing. And really, it was just 2 people. He was managing the farm. I was doing all of the processing in-house solo. So I could, for example, we'd bring 5 pigs into butcher every other week. So I would break them one week, and then I'd produce sausage the next week completely by myself. Just side note, self-trained, no, culinary school background, just working with mentors. And there's a little secret: if no one's leaning over your shoulder telling you it's the wrong way, it's the right way.
I love that, because I read that in your bio and I was like, holy cow.
I will tell a very brief story, because this is, I think, how it all started. But I had a lamb on the farm that was injured, and I called all my neighbors. Hey, can you help me out? I got this injured lamb. I need to process it. I couldn't bring it to the USDA slaughter. I had 2 little kids, a 3.5-year-old and an infant with me, like literally attached to me. And I called everyone, and I didn't know, there was no one to come help me. And then my 3.5-year-old turned to me and she said, Mommy, maybe we should invite Grandma over and we'll have lamb for dinner. And in that moment, I was like, yeah, I better make that happen. Yeah. This 3.5-year-old thinks I can take a dying sheep and turn it into food. I better get my act together. So we just, okay, let's do it. Let's go get a knife. We'll get a bucket. We need a rope. And we did it. We slaughtered the lamb. We skinned it. We tied some beautiful roasts, and we had my mom over for dinner for lamb.
Oh, it was a great story.
Sometimes that's the way you have to start.
Yeah, from the mouth of babes. That's
quite literally.
Really appreciate that story. So you were not in this business for the first couple of years, at least not in the way that you are now, and then you made the decision. As people in our audience are listening, what are some of the things that they need to be thinking about if they're, obviously we've got a tremendous interest in this topic, so I'm assuming people are interested in moving this direction, but what are the big issues, the big hurdles, the big questions, the big speed bumps, the traps to miss? Share some wisdom from both of you on what are mistakes you made that we can avoid because of your experience.
I think for me, I'll be honest, becoming a farmer was a snowball. It started out, I didn't have an intention of being a farmer. It was more, and it wasn't even homesteading. It was, let's do this to stay busy during the recession and make our own food and stay busy. And it did.
You started in 2009. Do I remember that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great.
It was just, hey, we'll get 2 pigs and we'll have some chickens and make a garden, and keep this kid entertained and ourselves busy. And we I came from a furniture design, build, industrial design background. So that's how it started. My partner then did have some vision in saying, let's raise 25 pigs next year. That'll pay X amount of our mortgage. And I was like, you are crazy. This is not going to happen. What are you talking about? But to convince me, I was saying, well, let's pre-sell them because otherwise it's too risky. And he said, great, I'll do infrastructure, you pre-sell. And we did that. And it turned into 25 pigs the next year with no contracts. It was just word of, confidence. But what I researched was restaurants that had charcuterie programs, specifically whole animals. And we had found ourselves in a funny little niche, which was originally, I started getting whey from a local cheesemaker as a byproduct, protein, and for the pig's enjoyment. And that, interestingly, whey-fed pigs, how it relates to charcuterie, has a very long history. And so it became a very niche product for chefs. So instead of just going to a restaurant saying, hi, do you want to buy a pig? I said, well, I have these heritage pastured whey-fed pigs for your charcuterie program. And that kind of launched us into a kind of specialty area. I think that, again, what I didn't do, in writing a business plan, it was it was more diversified. There was so much experimentation. I didn't have farming in my family history or background. So there's some benefits to that. Not coming from farming means that I didn't have any previous rules that I was held to, I could break, and I would have to break. Oh, this is a family rule, this is a family tradition in this farming family. So we just started it just from our own experience as being problem solvers, builders, and even a product designer having that experience. So many mishaps. Oh my gosh.
Get an invoicing system. That is a big mistake, is to not have a system in place that is trackable and lets you easily check and see who owes you money.
You mean chefs don't pay their bills right away?
No, and that's the other thing too, is another mistake is to make your terms a little too wide. As a vertically integrated business, we're paying for that pig from the 8-week, 10-week-old piglet all the way through processing until it's sitting in the freezer, and we're paying all those bills the whole time. So it's a real hard shift if you're going from just value added to vertically integrated. It's good and challenging.
Yeah. Also thinking about it in an annual way or with a 3-year plan. I think that's where we transitioned the last couple of years, where we were really thinking about even month to month, quarter to quarter, and now we are trying to think annually up to 3 years minimum of how we plan, not just how we're raising the animals, but how we budget ourselves, because there's seasonal fluctuations. Like first quarter, it's always slow. Restaurants are done, markets are gone. How are we surviving when we still are raising animals, paying our employees, and sustaining the farm, but we don't have that same income? So trying to find a balance, also finding a balance in our markets. That was a really big challenge. Originally just starting out wholesaling whole animals, then starting farmers markets, direct to retail, and adding in wholesale of value-added finished products.
Now, and you've added each of those. You haven't walked away from any of those product categories. Is that correct?
We haven't walked away. Although when we started, wholesale whole animals was the foundation of the business. Right. That really changed over time. Not only how many other farms regionally were doing similar to what we do, heritage pastured pigs, but that also with minimum wage changes, restaurants being able to support staffing they could do their own in-house processing changed, and then COVID really changed that, where, no one was buying a whole animal anymore.
They weren't even open.
They weren't even open. So, having a diversified outlet for our pigs was really important.
And it still is.
And it still is, with all the different changes in the markets. Again, working with Julia Shanks, we did an amazing breakout of our different costs and our gross, like what we could make direct to retail farmers markets, us doing our own wholesale and distribution versus us having a distributor. And wow, what an amazing model that was.
So let me see if I get the value stream here. You don't have any sows, so you buy all you said wing piglets.
Yes,
And
we
then-
don't farrow here. We buy in feeder pigs from
Right.
one. farm.
Okay, so you got feeder pigs on it, and then it's being transferred over to processing. Most of the processing is a combination of USDA and then in-house, one form or another. And then you're selling into, it sounds like at least 3 channels. You've got chefs, markets, both farmer markets and grocery stores.
Yeah.
Are you doing any other form of direct to consumers? Do you have a storefront on the farm, or do any website sales or anything like that?
No, I mean, we'd like to. Again, it's just infrastructure and literally having the time to stop and talk to people. But we do, I think it's
We do hot food events as well.
Oh yeah, we cook.
Okay.
We cook at
Okay.
events and do like stuff like that.
So let's dig a little bit deeper into your product line. What's the breadth of your product line, and then where's the highest volume area? What sort of products are you moving the most?
Let me jump in
Yeah.
and
Please.
answer the question you originally had and that Pat brought up in the chat is, right now we have 5 employees, including Ruby and I. We've got a butcher who is also the kitchen production manager. We've got a charcuterie who is also a butcher. And then we've got a farmer, we've got Ruby, and we've got me. We have contractors that we do pay for, farmers markets, staffing, but they're not technically employees.
Gotcha.
And they come and go, high turnover.
But that being said, Allison is the office manager, but she helps on the farm sometimes and also does a market every week on Saturday in Hudson.
Ooh, that's another point, is it's a mistake thinking that your time is less valuable because of retail sales. That's something we found out during our big financial.
Say that again, Allison. Explain what you mean there. I'm not sure I follow you.
Well, what we found is there was a lot of sweat equity going into the farm from the business partners, thinking that, we're maintaining more of our own profits. And then after all of this financial relook, we're really understanding that, it takes us a whole lot longer to sell, at the farmer's market than it does to sign up for a distributor. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So
Learning.
labor, our
Yeah.
own labor, which we often omit to take into consideration as business owners or farmers in general, and actually recording, I still don't record the time that I put in every day, technically, but we tend to avoid, well, I'm not paying myself. I live on a 100-acre farm and I just work and I do all the markets, but you have to take that into consideration.
Definitely pay yourself. Don't use your business as a piggy bank.
Yeah. Yeah. Separating myself. This is the first, now it's been in 2 years. I'm finally on payroll of my own business. And that really also helps differentiate, where your costs are, separating personal life from the business, because
it's really gray.
it gets really gray.
Yeah. It should. So now circle back to describe more of your product line and what your biggest movers are and those sorts of things.
Yeah. So we have, so I just want to clarify, we bring in feeder pigs. We raise them here for almost a year on the farm. I load the live animals around, I go to larger hang weight than most people do. So our pigs finish in the 300 plus pounds hang weight. And we do that because I found that our labor for a 300-pound pig versus a 200-pound pig is very similar, but we get better yield. And
they get a better life
and they have
and a
a
longer life.
longer life. And
How long does it take you to raise a 300 plus pig?
well, it depends on the genetics. It depends on whether they're inside or outside and seasonally, but it's 9 months to a year.
Okay.
And
we do have some little stowaways that evade capture for quite some time. So we got a pig that was on the farm for something like 400, 500 days or something.
But it is important what we finally
ear
have
tags are
and-
important.
what we finally have integrated into that process actually is all of our pigs, when they arrive, our feeder pigs have ear tags. We can reference their genetics, the sow and boar, and their lifespan. We literally have every week how many days when they go to slaughter, we know how many days that pig has been on the farm, estimating how much food it's eaten, and it's genetic. So when we see a pork chop on the table, we're like, oh my God, that is beautiful. We can look back and say, wow, those genetics made a difference because of how long it was on the farm and how it looks, how much marbling is in the muscle. And that brings us back to planning ahead for the next years, focusing on our genetics to our product. So then the pigs are slaughtered. They go to, I bring them to a USDA slaughter facility. They're slaughtered. And then I pick them up a couple days later, Monday morning, in primal, because I can't lift a 200-pound side and I don't want anyone to. So that's head, shoulder, loin, bellies, split, ham, and then it becomes primal. So we can sell those primals to a restaurant, which we do just as a fresh primal. And then we'll take those and we start to break them down. Our primary first break is basically whole intact muscles. And this is under USDA inspection. So I rent a facility at this time. There is a facility that we're building on the farm, which I can explain in more detail. But so pigs come in under USDA inspection. We have an inspector every single day on the floor of our processing facility that I rent. And we break the pigs first into cuts, pork chops, ribs, standard cuts that our customers want. There's a second area which I call a little bit of value-added cuts, which I can explain, and which is when you have a whole pig and you're breaking it down just like a beef, you can pull a skirt steak, you can pull a flank steak from a pig. Most people don't because it's small, it takes time and labor. But what we found is adding these extra value specialty cuts excites our customers, and it creates another product which actually has a higher margin for a smaller amount of meat. So when you cut a skirt steak, it has a higher value, as high as a tenderloin, because it also doesn't exist in the existing market, and they're delicious. So there's that. Sausage comes next. We take, a large percentage of the trim, and that becomes sausage, and that's, what is it? It's like 60% of our sales. 63% of our sales annually is fresh sausage.
Either retail or wholesale.
Retail or wholesale. So what we've been able to do, because we do our own processing in-house, originally sausage when we outsourced USDA, we'd get sausage back and it was basically sweet Italian, hot Italian, pretty basic stuff, whatever the USDA processor had on hand, or their, whatever they sourced for spice kits. We transitioned that for a couple of years to sourcing USDA approved, HACCP approved spice kits to deliver to our USDA processor to give more diversified product line. And then when I started doing processing in-house, it made me capable, our team capable of having hyper seasonal product. So fresh sausage isn't just sweet Italian, hot Italian. When there's garlic scapes at the farmer's market, we have garlic scape sausage, spring garlic, rhubarb mostarda sausage. It really becomes creative and dynamic and really fun. But we're folding that all into one type of product, fresh sausage. And then the products that we came up with under value added, which we couldn't do under federal, because federal is basically only fresh raw. In order to do anything cooked, ready to eat, we did that under our 20C Ag and Markets license,
Which is New York State's
New York State
Yeah, so-
version of Ag and
state.
Thank you.
Yes.
So what we were finding first from our when we had our product, our pigs processed under USDA outsourced, we were losing 40%, if not more, of every animal we raised. So you bring in a pig, you get a hang weight, and then when you weigh your boxes and you look at your product, you lost 40% of the animal you raised. That's not okay. What can we do to change that? So we tried to first outsource from other co-packers. We want bone broth from our bones. We want to start making pate. We want to make charcuterie, salami. We can outsource bacon, which is pretty typical. And we do that. So we trim our own bellies and we outsource the bacon because there's almost too much labor and equipment costs to do that in-house. And the first products we did were pate, which is a percentage of ground pork, and using our livers and JC taking something that was a non-saleable into a higher end margin product. And then simple bone broth. We take all of our bones and make them into broth. And then we kind of came up with some other fun value-added products with the co-packer. One is tare, the other one was even simpler. I make a mix of a force meat. We went to a local dim sum house, and they would make pot stickers and wontons with our meat inside. We get them back frozen, and so that helps sell our bone stock. So it takes, we have part of the labor, and also what's so important in that is, again, looking at your cost. Yeah, do I love having wontons and pot stickers in my freezer? Do the customers love it? Yes. But what's its margin? And that, we'll keep doing it as long as that supports it. And it's really hard to make those decisions sometimes.
Now, we're about to do a program. The next month's program, I think, is on pricing. A quick word about pricing from you. You've stressed several times the importance of knowing your costs so you can figure your margin. Is your approach to pricing, there's a margin I need to make, I take my cost, I figure in that margin, and that's going to be the price? Or is the price more influenced by, here's what we think the market will bear, here's what other people are doing? Talk to us about pricing.
A little of both, maybe.
We do really look at the cost. And now that we've put together these kinds of spreadsheets, which are helpful to knowing, well, what does it take to raise a pig? Like literally, from beginning to end. And don't forget your labor in there. The farm owner or business owner, not just your staff, all of your seasonal, your bedding, your feed costs, how they fluctuate annually, like literally everything, your fuel to get to and from markets. You have to have all of that information. And then our goal is to say, well, the cost is, we have 30%. We can't go over that in relation to the production of a fresh sausage, because we have to include the potential of wholesaling that and what we're going to have to drop the price for to wholesale it. And then it's really tight. And so we do try and look at the numbers, and also sometimes it's just, you try and look at the other, you try and see what else is out there and relate. But at a certain point, when it's hard, but when customers come to you wholesale, anyone that's coming to carry a product, they always do ask, why is this cost this much? And
what's your spiel? Everybody that works the market has their own retort. So I want to hear something good.
I'd like to say, come visit the farm. This is, this is not, and I think this is also really important. And I try to say at farmers markets, we're not volunteers. We're not community volunteers. We do stand at the farmers market. It's our community. We love feeding people. It's what we do.
We pay to be there.
We pay to be there, and we're not volunteers. So this is a business, and that having a customer understand that it's a business is so important. And then I think
and the education of the difference between commodity pork and pastured pork, and the difference between pastured pork and what we're doing.
Educating your customer is.
I'm sure everybody else is as curious as I am. Give me a benchmark price. Take fresh sausage. What would be a typical price that you'd see at a farmer's market for your fresh sausage?
Our fresh sausage is $17 a pound.
Okay. Yeah.
Mostly at our farmers markets, the person right across from me is 15, lower 12, $12 to 15.
Yeah.
So we really do have to educate our customers. Yes, when a customer comes over and they see I have a, poblano chili sausage with bacon ground into it. Yeah, there's that impulse buy. But also when they eat it and they understand, they can taste the difference, and also understanding, being at the market, seeing the farmer. And I literally say, know your farmer, know your food, because if the customer doesn't understand that, I've so many people come up and they don't even know that I'm raising the animals at all, and they're at the farmer's market. So,
well, you had me at rhubarb mostarda. I'm ready to drive away.
For 2 weeks a year. It's only for 2 weeks a year.
Well, you got to tell me which weeks, and I'll come up. So, so let's go back to your value chain and your channels that you're selling into. What's different about selling these products to chefs versus a farmer's market versus other outlets? I mean, I think a lot of us are very intimidated by chefs and trying to sell, and what you've done there is inspiring. So can you talk about that?
Right. I think having this chef, well, what I found is actually it was a lot more fun hanging out with chefs than it was hanging out with interior designers, honestly. Because you eat a lot more and you drink a lot more. No, but really it was, I think that chefs do want to know mostly about the farm. They want to feel connected, and we'd often have them come to the farm and actually help. I had a chef that was helping us pick string beans, haricot vert, at like 5 in the morning in a pouring downpour. And at the end, he was like, I will never throw a string bean away. That is so hard. Like it's, understanding what it is. But also having them understand what, like when I would sell fresh sausage to them, it's high price. They're paying, what is it?
$12.75.
$12.75 a pound.
Wholesale.
So that's a lot. That's what typically might even be a retail, find a sausage.
That really might be a high retail in some spots. Yeah.
Hard retail in some spots.
True.
Why are they paying for that? Well, they don't have to pay in-house labor for that. So, and also we can come up with something that's custom just for them. So we work with a restaurant that was also a beereria. So it's like, let's send us samples of your 5 top selling beers, which is also super nice. And we'll sample them and we'll make up a recipe that includes that. So it's partnering with part of their creative process. And it's interesting because it helps push us into more creative ideas. And also it's part of it is collaboration, which is also makes the chef or restaurant or business feel that they're, have a product that identifies with them and empowers their product line, just as much as it becomes a partnership for us.
I could talk to you two all day, but I've got to open this up and let other people get a chance to ask some questions. So Clay and Paige, you've got some questions you want to share from the audience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to come on here with you all. So Amy just had to leave, but this might be a quick question to answer. We have a couple, so we're going to try to get through these. Amy asked, is the place you rent to process in a commercial kitchen? Or can maybe you tell us a little bit about the licensing you have on your facility if it's on property?
Yeah.
Current.
Okay. So there's, I currently rent space from my USDA slaughter facility. They have a slaughter facility, and then they also have a second facility where they did like tertiary processing. So the animals weren't being slaughtered there. It was just processing bacon, lambs, other stuff. So I rent from them, and I've been actually processing under his establishment number. So that
Since 2015.
Since 2015. So that is a very specific type of collaboration. Not a lot of USDA processors might do that, but it is a very commercial kitchen. It's again, like I said, it's wash down, stainless steel, USDA inspectors on site every day. In that same facility, there is also an area which has ranges, a hood, a kettle, and other other ability to do like catering, ready to eat, more value-added products. So we have a 20C license, which is in the same facility, but that's actually under my own business, not his establishment number, so that I can do events. I can do events where like I say, I'm cooking at an event, I'm doing sausages, selling hot food. I do that under my 20C Ag and Markets. And I can also sell direct to retail within New York State under that license.
Perfect.
All my USDA means I can wholesale it across the country. Ag and Markets is only New York State.
Perfect. Pat has a couple questions. We're going to take the first one on, and then we'll come back to the second one. So Pat asked,
Well,
how
there was
does
one
product-
thing I wanted to add. Sorry, Clyde.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Separately, we have been building on farm for quite a number of years, an on-farm facility to do all of our own processing in-house under federal inspection, which will give us that next level of independence from, the existing processing that we are capable of doing.
And you'll be doing slaughter and processing in this new facility?
No,
Just
Just process.
so it'll be similar. We're
And
Gotcha.
we have the aging room. That'll be the next step in
Oh.
our value added
Yeah.
product.
making salami,
journey.
whole muscle cures, and doing our smoking in-house, in addition to being able to do our current, which we currently do under 20C, under federal. So we'll be able to do our pates, our bone stocks, all these other ready-to-eat products, also under USDA, so we can wholesale them also.
Nice. We're going to have a follow-up question to that one, actually, to build on that in just a second.
Okay.
I wanted to grab Pat's first question, which was, how does product move between Hudson Valley Charcuterie and Raven and Boar in terms of financials? Does Raven and Boar buy from Hudson Valley Charcuterie in real dollars or just on paper? Separating the two businesses is really interesting. Their processing facility and farm are integrated, so they're thinking about that separation for themselves.
Yes. Okay.
Go, Allison.
So it's really up to your operating agreement, because you'll need to have, dependent on, like, Raven and Boar owns Hudson Valley Charcuterie. So we're all still technically under the same umbrella. It's just the separation for liability, really. And then, and taxes and budgeting, and, our employees are employed by Hudson Valley Charcuterie, and, it's there's a lot of overlap, but the way that we do it is I track everything separately by class and business, so that we can really break things apart and say, what is the true cost of raising a Raven and Boar pig? And what is the true cost of having a Raven and Boar pig product? And a lot of that is just analysis.
Well, it's
A
also
lot of
data
analysis,
mining, because
mining.
it doesn't, you'd be surprised how much data there is. I think it was important to show that we don't actually pay, we know the cost of pigs.
Mhm. There's no money
There's no
changing
money
hands.
exchanging between the businesses, although our accountant does find ways to communicate that in how we pay our taxes and how the businesses are intertwined.
Mhm.
But I think that it is really important
It's a
to,
lot of bookkeeping.
it's a lot of bookkeeping. But also what I was gonna say about data is it goes from literally like when we get our primals in, we weigh every primal. We're checking our yields.
This is our yield sheet. It's
Every
like
week we
every
take
week.
data and it's and as a team we communicate about the data. So it's not just like, oh, this just is data and it just goes nowhere. The important part is getting the data on how your business functions, what your yields are, and then using it and implementing it into how the businesses can be better functioning. And
Did you learn how to do all that analysis the same way you learned how to butcher a lamb? You just let's dig into it and see what happened?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
thought
I'm really
analysis.
impressed.
I did not go to business school.
Neither did I.
We're both have art backgrounds.
Mhm.
But I think
But art is all problem solving, and farms are just lousy with problems. So it's like the perfect place.
I think this is
for
important part
artists.
to say that there was a certain point where for both of us in our team, as a team, Allison has said to me, Ruby, pivot where you're looking, because and also ask for help.
Mhm.
There's so many times where I just thought, this is a huge weight on me. I'm not a business person. I don't know how to solve this problem. Guess what? There are people out there who do know how to help and solve this problem. You just have to ask for it,
Mhm.
especially in agriculture. So we have organizations, Berkshire Ag Ventures, Columbia County Economic Development, Hudson Valley Agribusiness, USDA, there's
Empire State
State Development. Get in touch with your Cornell Cooperative Extension, wherever it is, and start trying to find, because we've received, we
and
literally,
write grants.
yeah, we got a
Don't be
grant.
afraid of grant
We got a
writing.
grant for a grant writer. Like, we have to write a grant. How are we going to do that? You know what?
We got the value added producer grant.
Yeah.
So
Which is
which we
huge.
tried to do for years. So
Yeah, I think Pat was just asking about that in the chat, actually, the MPIRG grant. So
it is a beast.
It's a beast, but also, how are we going to write this grant? You know what?
Mhm.
There's no way we knew we're working full time. We're managing the farm. We're doing all this stuff. But we reached out to another organization. They literally paid for a grant writer and a business planner. And we spent months on it, and we did get the grant. And now we're still working with them through the process and their continued support in making sure we follow through with the grant. So I think one of the most important things is literally asking for help. And now I feel like the foundation, our understanding of how we are business people and farmers and artists and creative people is sometimes gray. It's intertwined, but it does always come back to loving what we're doing. And but also it has to support us. It has to sustain our lives, because we can't just keep doing this and it not give back to supporting us.
Camus, Clay, and Paige, there's a great idea for another program there. And where can you turn for help? I think that's a great idea that you have there, Ruby. So thank you for.
Well, especially right now, because there's a new initiative with the USDA to like really focus on meat processing. And so there's a lot of meat money out there. You just have to ask for it.
Yeah, COVID really changed that. The country realized how messed up the system is in relation to meat processing, where our food comes from. And there is a lot of federal grants right now for meat processors to go from your ag and markets to federally inspected product. And yeah, they all have these crazy acronyms, which all sound very similar.
IMPEP and IMPILP.
IMPILP and IMPEP. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point. We'll add that to the list for sure. Yeah, to circle back on that.
Worth looking into.
Yeah. I've got a couple more. We've got about 3-4 more minutes for Q&A. So I'm gonna try to power through some questions real fast. So Camus actually asked in regards to fermented charcuterie like salami or whole muscle charcuterie, they're riskier to you, more labor intensive. How are you charging for that? How are you figuring out pricing for that?
Okay. Again, so what we did is we put together literally a spreadsheet. We know, we know what they can retail for. We have a general idea what they can wholesale for. So we have a range, and then we literally put in this spreadsheet. We have a fresh loin. What can we retail it for? When we took the labor and the cost and the extended time and infrastructure it's going to take, and how long it's going to take for it to become a lonza, but what we can charge for that retail wholesale. And so we broke it down for specifically for sausage into salami, for whole cuts into whole muscle cures, and bellies into bacon or pancetta. And we literally breaking down the numbers, looking at our costs, looking at our margin again, and saying, how is this going to change? And how are we going to change our entire business model from fresh sausage, which is 63% of our business, to salami, and still raise the same amount of pigs and still, have it be our direct source material. It's not like, oh, I just need like 40 shoulders this week to make some salami. That's not how it works here.
Yeah, it takes a really long day of pig math to come up with, the plan for the year, and then every single thing changes the whole system.
And guess what? It is risky.
Yeah.
It is risky, and it's costs a lot. And it's taken years and still taking years. And I really hope the model works. I got to say, it's still almost 15 years in. It's a test to know if it's working.
But it really does help to have people that like to work.
Are dedicated.
Work ethic is kind of,
does that help answer that question? I think it goes back to, well, if we could just outsource it, that would be one thing. Sure, there are people who do that. And I don't know how they meet their margin. I don't know what they pay for that, the meat that goes into that. But having it in-house and vertically integrated, it's a huge challenge. We've definitely looked at, buying in pigs and not farming. And then that question is, when the risk is, if that source material isn't available all of a sudden, then what happens to my business? So in a way, by being the farmer, being the processor, and being the marketing and distributor all in one little package, we are able to fluctuate with and adapt. And that is something that we were talking about earlier, is being able to adapt every day. I don't know if it's just being a farmer, it's every day is different with our business, with our employees and our perspective. And
after all of the years of expertise, it's still just a real crapshoot whether or not it's gonna work out.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to try to wrap these last two questions maybe
so
into
it's really like spreadsheet, like make the what
start to love your spreadsheets.
Scenarios. You got to do a scenario where your farm is producing it, or their other farm is producing it. We came to the realization that, like, I was always so like, oh, that ingredient's so expensive, like we shouldn't get that. And then when we looked at the numbers, like, well, the pork is the most expensive, so it doesn't matter what the ingredients cost, really, because it's so nominal.
Yeah, if I was just buying in commodity pork, I mean, I'd have an awesome business.
Yeah.
But that's not the point of what we do.
Yeah,
so
don't do it until I get up there to have some of that rhubarb and star.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm going to grab these last two questions real fast and try to put them
yeah.
together, and then we're going to have to get off, unfortunately. Thanks. So Chris was asking about, do you ever do any sampling at the markets? And this came up when you were talking about pricing at markets and sort of the transparency factor of why your products cost so much. And then maybe there's a way to attach this piece too really quickly, which is Pat also asked about, for fresh ingredients for those kind of products, do you ever run into any issues with the USDA allowing it as an approved supplier, since there's no letter of guarantee?
Yes. Okay. Yes, we do sample at markets. It definitely helps customers smelling bacon and tasting sausage. I think that depending on your market, you might need to have a serve safe or some food handling permitting or licensing in order to sample food. So that's regionally, you'll have to find that out.
And a note is that sampling could be a really great way to like boost up your like slow times of the market.
Yeah.
Like we don't sample during the time that is really busy. It's like when it's slow, the samples and the meat smell.
Yeah, meat smell helps. And then yes, fresh ingredients. It is an issue. For example, I used to make a ramp sausage. And ramps are foraged. So USDA inspectors do not like that, even though they were cleaned and processed the same as a harvested, local vegetable. We have had farms give us letter of guarantees. So if anyone doesn't know what a letter of guarantee is, it's basically every spice, every ingredient, we have to go to the producer of that ingredient and ask them to guarantee their product that it's safe to be included in our product. So we can get that from farms. You can get that from small processors. And for greens, we do have a system in place for how we clean every ingredient that comes in, whether it's an orange that we're zesting or a fresh leafy green to an onion. How is that process in-house to make it safe? Garlic is a huge issue because botulism and garlic, there's like risks attached to every form of fresh, but it does make a huge difference in our product.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for that.
Any other questions out there? I don't have a lot of time, but my information is there, and I'm happy to field anything else in the future.
I'm very thorough emailer. Can answer all the questions.
Well, if you're up for it, I will absolutely share out your all's contact information.
Super.
So folks, when the video will go out, so the video link will go out on Monday. Alex, unless you've got anything you want to jump in with, all right, perfect. All right. Well, I just want to thank everyone for being here, particularly Ruby and Allison. Thank you for joining us, sharing your insights, your journey. Yeah, round of applause for that. I appreciate that. And also Alex, our host with the most, as always. Thanks for being here and leading us through a really productive conversation and insightful. So I'm going to put Alex mentioned this earlier as well. Our Lowdown topic in May is going to be pricing for profit. It comes up no matter what the lowdown is. So we're going to have a really candid conversation around that. So be sure to sign up for that. Registration is open now. Ruby and Allison also just dropped their contact information in the chat. So grab that. I'll be sure to share that. Thanks for that. One last note before we get off of here too. If you still have burning questions or you leave here today and you have other questions that come up over the weekend, our friend and esteemed colleague, Tim Joseph, I'm going to bring him on screen real fast, is going to join us Tuesday afternoon for office hours. We'll have a free form office hour on Tuesday where you can come in, ask follow-up questions. And I'm going to invite Tim on real fast just to say a little bit about himself and his experience with value added as well. And then hopefully many of you will join us with your questions on Tuesday.
Yeah, feel free to come on Tuesday. And obviously I've been involved in dairy, Maple Hill, but also have a lot of experience helping others with other products, and they're all similar problems in different containers is what I say. So if I can be helpful thinking through something specific to yours, jump on. It's super informal and happy to help.
Thanks, Tim.
As a farmer, let me endorse Tim. If you're not taking advantage of what he's offering, you're missing it. Just call in on Tuesday.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Tim. And again, just one more time, thanks. Yep. It sounds like you got a question or something to say real fast, Ruby?
Yeah, I just want to say, you think your USDA inspector is set on what they do. You can also go to your USDA facility and educate them, because what they're learning is going to help broaden the spectrum of what every farm is capable of producing and start to collaborate. That's what happened with me and my slaughter facility. We reached out, we started communicating, and now they're producing much better stuff for all the farmers too, not just, me being able to have my capabilities. So reach out to your processor.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
guys.
we hope to see so many of you all on Tuesday. Again, Allison and Ruby, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
We love talking about us.
Yay, eat sausage.
Thanks, everybody. Reach out if you got questions.